and good day, everyone. I'm Joshua Weisel here in the Weather 225 Storm Studios with a look at your forecast for the remainder of today in Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Southwest Missouri. We're starting with the headlines because we've got a lot to talk about, and this is going to include a couple of hazards now that the rain chances are starting to wind down. Got some other things to talk about, including Saharan dust that arrives by the time we get to early next week. And then we're also talking about the potential for maybe some triple-digit heat in some locations, and certainly triple-digit heat index values for, a little bit more widespread as we head into more of a summer-like pattern. And then the other thing, too, finally starting to see the weather quiet down. We got rain and storm chances today, some isolated chances tomorrow once again, and then by the time we head into early next week, we should be fully, a little bit on the calmer side with the weather, especially late weekend as well. For the remainder of today, some areas are going to start off a little bit cooler, like Barnsdall right around 85 is the forecast for today. 90s in the River Valley, right around the upper 80s to lower 90s, anywhere between about 88 to 91, I'd say. And then Northwest Arkansas, Southwest Missouri, right around the lower to the mid 80s, just depending on the location. Overnight tonight's going to be another, kind of same old, same old. We're going to be expecting some of those lower to the mid 70s pretty much for a large portion of the area. So another slightly warm start to the day. A little bit warmer by a couple degrees into eastern Oklahoma and in the River Valley. So that's kind of the same old pattern, but we've got some changes. We'll show you the 7-day forecast here in just a minute and future scan radar. So here's a look at what we've got. Unfortunately, we've got another evening of potential for some strong to severe storms like yesterday. Not everyone's going to see severe weather. In fact, some good news is the cap started to develop later yesterday evening, and that meant that the activity that was making its way towards the area, once it kind of hit this line where we cover, stuff fizzled out pretty significantly. So the good news is for at least a majority of our coverage area, we didn't see a whole lot of activity yesterday. Unfortunately, for areas such as Tahlequah, we did see some wind damage from some intense winds with some of the storms, even one tornado warning. Today, kind of the same thing, but not in terms of tornadoes and all of that. The way it's going to be similar to yesterday is kind of like what we've been saying with some of these last few systems is not everyone's going to see severe weather. Now, over the course of the weekend last week, that was a little bit different. That was a little bit more widespread. But for our neck of the woods, today, there's a low and a medium chance for some strong to severe storms north of I-40. Some of those could produce maybe some large hail, damaging winds, and an isolated tornado or two. Not everyone's going to see those impacts, and not everyone's going to see severe weather. But I think along and north of I-40, there's another chance for some scattered showers and thunderstorms. So outside of the severe weather probability, there's a chance that these areas see some rainfall to be aware of once again. And the reason that's going to be important, too, is I say this, and I've said this in our coverage the last couple of weeks. Whenever you have severe weather, this is typically the more glamorous, parts of the forecast. And I don't mean that in a positive way for storms. I'm just saying, think of severe weather in flooding. If I tell you it's going to flood or I tell you it's going to be severe weather, the thought of tornadoes and winds and hail are going to kind of, exceed the thought of flash flooding. So I don't want you to overlook the flooding potential. We've already seen considerable flash flood warnings in our parts of the coverage area, Southwest Missouri, Northeast Oklahoma, over the last couple of weeks. There's a lot of water laying around, and then you add that rainfall to it, and we'll show you what we're talking about. That's going to lead to some flooding potential. So don't overlook the flooding potential because we got another risk for severe weather. Severe weather, obviously, we need to respect those risks and keep an eye on that, of course. But with the potential for some likely rainfall in our northern counties, and some areas could see anywhere from 2 to 5 inches of rain, that's going to be localized. I think area-wide, 1 to 3 inches is more favorable, but there will be a couple spots that could see as high as 5 inches of rainfall. We need to keep an eye on that as well, in addition to the severe weather probability. So I don't want you to downplay either risk that we have. Overnight tonight, maybe some patchy fog in some parts of eastern Oklahoma. This is brought to you by Foghorns. Thank you so much to Foghorns for sponsoring the channel. This is the Foghorns Morning Fog Outlook for tomorrow. And be sure to support them like to support us. They're located in Fayetteville and in Springdale. Be sure to check them out and support them. And thank you so much for checking them out. If you own a small business or a local business and you're looking to advertise, we do have options available such as this. Be sure to reach out to us today. You can find our contact information on weather225.com or head on over to my Facebook. We have a new post with all the latest details on that. Here's a look at future scan radar. And yeah, throughout the majority of this afternoon, a couple spotty showers will be possible. But by the time we get to 4, 5, 6 o'clock, we'll have to keep an eye on this activity to the north and west in portions of southwest Missouri, northeast Oklahoma. Unfortunately, these areas have been the epicenter for a lot of storm activity the last couple of weeks. And unfortunately, We got more on the way tonight. That'll continue into this evening into late tonight. Overnight tonight, there's going to be additional showers and storms that push in from the north and west. This will continue into tomorrow morning. And then by the time we get to tomorrow afternoon, things start to fizzle out. So unfortunately, another long night, but it's not going to be one of those nights where, absolutely everyone needs to stay up. It's a heightened severe weather probabilities, nothing like that. My encouragement for tonight is, the severe weather risk, it's going to be greater further to the north. We're still going to have a very unstable environment, conditions that are favorable for severe weather. But if you're worried about staying up all night tonight, you don't have to stay up all night. Word of advice is, especially along and north of I-40, have those ways to receive alerts overnight, ways that can wake you up just in case. I tell you, too, I feel sleep deprived. We've had all of these risks that have been evening and overnight, so I'm looking forward to the pattern that we've got ahead and much quieter weather. So tonight, not everyone's going to see severe weather. Not everyone's going to see storms in general, but just to be safe, because we have that risk, we're going to be keeping an eye on the activity this evening until late tonight. Have those ways to receive alerts just in case. Not everyone's going to see warnings, but in the event that they're issued, I want you to have those ways to receive alerts. Finally, we're quieting down, right? But we have another impact that's going to be making its way into the area. And I want to give as much heads up as possible to those who have any sort of respiratory illnesses, asthma, sensitivity to poor air quality, stuff like that. As someone with asthma myself, I look at these things all the time to make sure that, I'm going to be able to get through the day, that type of deal. So I feel you. If you got any sort of those issues, probably looking at this going, okay, well, I'm not looking forward to that. So early next week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday-ish, we're going to start to see a plume of some of the Saharan dust that's out into the Gulf, into portions of Mexico. That's going to start making its way towards our area. And in our case, unfortunately, we've highlighted two areas, the general poor air quality and then the more unhealthy air quality where it could be at unhealthy levels. Unfortunately for us, this does include eastern Oklahoma, western Arkansas, and our North Texas coverage area. We're just closer to the Gulf, so that means that plume, it's going to be a little bit more substantial when it makes its way into the southern states. Now, that doesn't mean that it's going to be zero visibility, the worst air quality we've ever seen. But think back the last couple of years when we get this plume of Saharan dust that comes in. The sky's a little bit hazy. You can kind of feel in the atmosphere. And if you have, respiratory sensitivities like me, you definitely feel it compared to others. So just giving you a heads up, early next week, we've got this plume of Saharan dust that's moving into the area. Could be some poor to unhealthy air quality associated with that. We'll keep an eye on it. We'll let you know the very latest. Otherwise, here's a look at the other headline. Yeah, we're into the 90s. And even in Northwest Arkansas, there could be some opportunities for some triple-digit heat index values, just depending on the area. And in fact, parts of the River Valley getting close to the triple digits, if not maybe seeing our first triple digits of the season and this year in general. So we'll have to wait and see Tuesday through Thursday if we're going to hit the triple digits. We'll keep an eye on that. And even for portions of Northeast Oklahoma, maybe some triple digit heat as well, because we're going to be in the upper 90s. But keep in mind, with some of these forecasts for the broad coverage area that we cover, you're going to have the official polling locations, which is what these forecasts are generally for. But areas outside of where those official polling locations are, those could see a couple degree differences. So, for example, at Fort Smith Airport, you could have a couple areas outside of where the airport's recording that are above those temperatures. So, hypothetically, let's say Fort Smith records 99. That doesn't mean that every single person in the River Valley seeing 99 degrees. There could be a couple areas that hit slightly higher. It's just that they don't have the official recording locations. So, and that's for, the climatology data, recording the records and everything along those lines for the forecast. So definitely the potential for some triple digit heat, maybe even into portions of Southwest Missouri. Maybe not as close as the River Valley in Northeast Oklahoma, but it is certainly going to be warmer as we head later into the week. So the other thing too, notice the rain chances dramatically lower. We're going to have a chance for some rain tomorrow. That's mostly morning through midday, and then it clears out by the time we get to the afternoon. And then maybe a couple pop-ups for parts of the area, maybe Wednesday, Thursday. So that's a look at what we got there. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a good one. And stick around. Well, the very latest information. If any warnings are issued later on, we'll be here in the studio covering those. And the other thing too, to help keep our operation funded and keep going and everything along those lines, we're looking for partnerships. And we have a couple ways that you can support us if you like these updates. One of the things that we do is we don't do the pop-up ads that you see on your typical apps and on your typical websites when you go to click it. It's a pop-up ad. We don't know where it's from. There's no way to check on the source. And, There's all sorts of, things that just float around the internet. We don't do that on our website, and there is the potential that we could make a lot of money from that, but we want the users to have a friendly experience where they go to the website, they get all of the forecast information they need. They don't have to click the pop-up ad to turn off. And we also want to highlight local businesses. So if you're looking to support a local business like your own and see if you can get your outreach out there through our platforms, we're looking to partner with local businesses. So that helps fund and support our business and get your outreach out there. And if you're a viewer and you don't have a local business that you want to support, but you still want to support us, you can check out our Patreon or one-time donations, anything like that on Venmo. So that's just our little plug here. We love keeping these services free. We love keeping these services user-friendly. We don't want you to be bogged down with, terrible pop-up ads in the hundreds and you have to click it off. And if you accidentally click on it, it's just a mess, that type of deal. So we keep these things completely free. We want to support local businesses, and we're looking to, get their outreach out there. And if you're looking to not only get your outreach out there and support a local business like ours, feel free to reach out. You can find our contact information overlaid on this video, and you can also reach us at weather225.com. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Joshua Weisel. Stay here for the latest. If you like our media and forecast, be sure to support us today on Patreon. You can advertise with us this storm season and throughout the year. Contact us today for availability and pricing. Weather225 since 2015.